The first time I saw Titus, I was convinced my heartbeat had betrayed me. It slammed against my ribs so hard that, for a moment, I thought the entire graduation field could hear it. I had photographed hundreds of students that morning, but none of them made the world narrow the way he did when he turned toward my camera with that bright, reckless smile. I lifted the lens, pretending I was calm, but something about him felt like the start of a story I wasn't ready for and yet desperately wanted. Ryder, right? His voice cut through the noise around us. It had a warm confidence, like he trusted people too easily or expected the world to say yes to him. Yeah, I managed, though it came out quieter than intended. You're Titus. He laughed lightly. Wow, word gets around. Or maybe you checked the roster ahead of time. I had, but only because the coordinator told me the valedictorian usually got a full series of portraits. I didn't expect the valedictorian to be someone who looked like he walked straight out of a story about first crushes and impossible timing. Titus tilted his head, studying me with a spark I couldn't quite decode. So how do you want me? It was an innocent question about the photos. My pulse did not process it that way. Just relax, I said, forcing professionalism back into place. Pretend you're talking to a friend. He smiled again. That might be dangerous. The shutter clicked faster than I intended, as if my camera wanted to steal every second of him before the moment vanished. The crowd around us blurred into a distant hum. His friends called for him from the edge of the courtyard, but he stayed still, eyes on me, like he was trying to memorize something quietly. I think these will turn out great, I said, checking the preview screen. He stepped closer. Can I see? His shoulder brushed mine. Felt accidental. It did not feel accidental. When he leaned in to gaze at the images, he exhaled softly, his breath warm against my cheek. For a split second, I forgot how to breathe at all. Ryder, he murmured, his voice low. You make people look special. You just are, I answered before my brain could stop me. He froze, not in discomfort, in surprise. Then he looked at me again, slower this time, like he was giving himself permission to notice me in ways that might matter. Is that so? I opened my mouth to take it back, to smooth the edges of whatever this moment was becoming. But before I could speak, one of his professors called for him. The moment shattered gently. He gave me one more look, a real one, the kind that anchors itself in the ribs and refuses to let go. Find me after the ceremony, he said. I want to talk. Then he ran off toward the stage. And somehow, I knew this wasn't going to be just another job. The ceremony dragged on, even though objectively it wasn't long. Every speech, every cheer, every soaring note of the graduation orchestra melted into background noise. My camera clicked and clicked, but my mind kept drifting toward the back row where Titus sat in his cap and gown, fingers tapping nervously on his knee. Not nervous about graduating. He didn't feel like someone who doubted his path. Nervous about me. The thought made my throat tighten. When the final names were called and caps soared into the sky like small pieces of freedom, I caught him scanning the crowd. He didn't smile the way he did earlier, not until his gaze locked with mine across the field. Then everything inside me pulsed alive. He crossed the lawn with long, determined strides, weaving past celebrating students until he reached me. You disappeared for a bit, he said, pushing a hand through his hair. I thought maybe you left. I don't leave before the job is done, I replied. His grin softened into something quieter. Good. I didn't want you to. Around us, families reunited, friends screamed and hugged, photographers raised their cameras again and again, but none of that felt real compared to the weight of his attention. You wanted to talk, I reminded him. Yeah. He shifted, suddenly looking younger, like a piece of his usual confidence slipped. But can we walk somewhere else? I want a place where no one listens in. His honesty startled me, felt fragile. Sure, I said. We left the ceremony grounds, climbing the small hill overlooking the quad. The air was heavy with the scent of cut grass and warm sunlight. When we reached a quiet spot beneath an oak tree, he stopped, the breeze pushing his gown gently around him. He turned toward me. "Ryder, I know we just met, but something feels like I should say this before I convince myself not to." My heart jolted. Titus wasn't the type to hesitate. Whatever he was wrestling with must have mattered. "What is it?" I asked softly. He looked down at the grass, then back up into my eyes with steady resolve. "I noticed you before today. Weeks ago. Maybe longer. I just never knew if it was obvious or just me being ridiculous. But when you said I'm special earlier, you don't know what that did to me. And I guess I'm wondering if you meant it or if you were just saying it for the photo." The world held its breath. "I meant it," I said. Titus let out a shaky exhale, like he had been waiting for those words more desperately than I realized. "I thought so," he murmured. "I hope so." He stepped closer until I could feel the warmth radiating from him. "I don't know what this is," he said, "but I'm not scared of it. Not if you're not." I wasn't. That was the terrifying part. I had spent years avoiding moments like this, moments where truth pressed too close, where feelings became real. But something about him felt like a promise I didn't want to run from. "I'm not," I whispered. He reached out but hesitated before touching me, as if giving me the chance to step back. I didn't. His fingers brushed my wrist, light but certain, and the sensation shot through me with a force I couldn't disguise. I felt like the world tilted just slightly toward him. "I want to know you," he said simply, "not the guy behind the camera. You." Before I could answer, a gust of wind swept through, sending a flurry of cap tassels and loose papers across the hill. Titus laughed, the sound warm and unguarded. When he turned back to me, something playful flickered in his eyes. "Come with me." "Where?" "Somewhere we can breathe." I followed him down the hill, through the courtyard, past the lingering graduates and families. We reached the back steps of the old library where the crowds thinned out. The afternoon sun painted everything gold. Titus sank onto the steps and patted the space beside him. I sat, feeling the stone warm beneath my palms. So he said, turning to me like he had waited a long time for this moment, "Tell me something true, something you don't tell strangers." I wanted to laugh. He wasn't a stranger. Not anymore. Not with the way he looked at me. "Something true," I repeated. Then I swallowed. "I'm not great at letting people in." He nodded slowly, as if he understood more than I expected. "Then let me try. Not force. Not rush. Just try." His sincerity hit deeper than any confession could. "Your turn," I said. He looked out over the empty quad. "Something true about me," he murmured. "Okay. I'm tired of pretending I only care about what I'm supposed to care about. Everyone had plans for me. My major, my career, my image. But none of them ever asked what I wanted." "What do you want?" I asked. He met my eyes again. "Right now, just this moment. With you." My breath hitched. Titus didn't speak like someone flirting for fun. He spoke like someone who meant every syllable. But the moment softened when he added with a half smile and maybe a slice of pie, "I'm starving." I laughed. The tension dissolved just enough for us to breathe again. We got up and walked toward the campus cafe. The sidewalks shimmered in the late afternoon light. I could feel his presence beside me like gravity. When we reached the steps, he paused. "Ryder. Yeah. Thank you for seeing me today. Really seeing me." I felt the weight of it settle between us. Warm, quiet, real. "Anytime," I said. His smile returned, not the bright one from earlier, but something gentler. Something meant only for me. We stepped inside together. And somehow, it felt like the day was just beginning. The cafe was nearly empty when we walked in, the post-graduation crowd having scattered toward family dinners and celebratory parties. Soft jazz drifted from an old speaker in the corner. Sunlight spilled through the windows in long golden stripes across the floor, catching the dust in suspended glimmers. Titus pushed open the door for me, and when I stepped past him, he stayed close enough that the faint brush of his gown against my arm made something flutter inside me. The cashier barely glanced up from wiping down the counter. Titus approached first, scanning the pastry display with exaggerated concentration. "You ever notice how celebration food is always either cake or pie?" he asked, tapping on the glass. "Like those are the only emotions we have, joy or sugar." I snorted. Pie is a pretty universal emotion, to be fair. He shot me a grin. "Then I guess I'm feeling universally emotional today." He ordered a slice of berry pie and 2 iced coffees, insisting on paying even when I reached for my wallet. When I protested, he just shook his head. "Nope, I dragged you away from actual work. Let me at least cover caffeine." It didn't feel like caffeine. It felt like something warmer, something more intentional. We slid into a booth near the window, the seats cracked slightly from years of use but comfortable enough. Titus pushed his tray between us, tearing off a corner of the pie crust and popping it into his mouth. So he said, leaning back, "What's the story with you, Ryder? You photograph graduations for fun." "This is my part-time job," I said, stirring my drink. "Helps pay the bills while I finish my certification program." "What program?" "Graphic design." His eyebrows lifted. "Nice. So you're an artist." I opened my mouth to argue that graphic design wasn't the same as painting or sculpting, but something about the way he said it made me pause. Like he saw it as something meaningful, not just a way to stay afloat. "Yeah, I guess I am." He nudged my foot under the table gently, just enough for me to notice. "Don't sell yourself short. I saw how you look at the world through that camera. It's not normal. In a good way." My face warmed. Compliments usually slid off me. His somehow found a place to land. "What about you?" I asked. "What's next for the valedictorian?" He groaned dramatically, letting his head fall back. "Please don't call me that. I still feel like I'm wearing a neon sign that says expectations." "Your speech was good." He peeked at me from one eye. "You listened. Hard not to. You were loud." He laughed so hard his shoulders shook. "God, you make it sound like I was yelling into a void." "Maybe you were, but it was a nice void." He grinned at me, and I could tell he was fighting the impulse to say something bolder. Instead, he took another bite of pie and spoke slower, more thoughtful. "I don't know what's next for me, honestly. People assume I've got it all mapped out because I get good grades, but that's their map, not mine." "What do you want your map to look like?" He hesitated, looking down at his fork. "I want a life that feels like it belongs to me. That's the best way I can say it." The softness in his voice made my chest tighten. "That's a good start," I whispered. His eyes lifted. "And maybe I want people in that life who see me without me trying so hard. Like earlier, with you." The air felt warm and heavy with meanings neither of us were ready to name out loud. Before I could reply, a group of students burst through the door laughing loudly, pulling the moment apart just enough for us to breathe. Titus finished the last bite of pie and pushed the plate away. "Hey," he said quietly, "we don't have to stay here. There's this rooftop on campus nobody uses. You can see the whole courtyard from up there. Want to go?" "Yeah," I said. "I do." His smile returned, brighter this time. He grabbed his coffee, I grabbed my camera, and we slipped out of the cafe together. We crossed the courtyard as the sunlight faded into early evening. The stone buildings glowed orange, and shadowed corners sharpened into definition. Titus walked a half step ahead of me, then fell back beside me, then drifted ahead again. He moved like someone with too much restless energy inside him to stay still. "What's on that rooftop?" I asked. He smirked. "You'll see." We reached an old academic building and climbed a narrow stairwell. At the top was a metal door with a faded sign that probably once said authorized personnel only but now just looked tired. Titus pushed it open, revealing the rooftop. The view was wide and quiet. The campus stretched below us in lazy squares of green and brick, students scattering like distant fireflies across the grounds. The wind was stronger up here, cool against my skin, tugging at my shirt and his gown. Titus stepped to the edge and lifted his arms slightly, letting the breeze catch the fabric. "God, I love this place," he murmured. "Not the school itself, but this spot. It's like the world finally shuts up." I moved beside him. It really was peaceful. The sun dipped lower, warming his skin in a glow that made him look impossibly alive. "Can I take your picture?" I asked before thinking. He blinked. "Right now?" "Yeah." His expression softened. "Only if you're in one with me after." That startled me, but I nodded. He stood with his back to the skyline, the wind lifting his hair just enough to reveal the sharp angle of his jaw. His eyes were bright, too bright for the soft evening light, like they held something burning. I lifted the camera, and in that moment he wasn't the valedictorian or the charming guy everyone admired. He was someone looking at me like he wanted me to understand something he couldn't say aloud. The shutter clicked. "Take another one," he said, voice low. I did. "Closer." I stepped forward, heart beating too loud. "Closer," he whispered. I raised the camera again. His face filled the frame, and even through the lens, I felt the quiet intensity of his gaze. "One more," he breathed. I took it. Then he reached out and gently pushed the camera down. "My turn," he said. He held the camera awkwardly, assessing it like someone holding something precious. "Stand there. No back up. Good." I felt weirdly exposed but stayed still as he lifted the lens. "You look different when you let your guard down," he murmured, not realizing he had spoken aloud. "How do I look? Like you're trying not to fall for something." My breath caught. He pressed the shutter. When he lowered the camera, his eyes were unreadable but full of something warm, something real. "Let me see," I said. "In a second. But first." He leaned the camera against the ledge and looked at me fully. The wind whipped across the rooftop, tugging at his gown and tossing his hair. The sky turned a deeper shade of gold. "Ryder, if I say something reckless, will you promise not to bolt?" I swallowed. "Depends how reckless." He smiled nervously. "Fair." He took a slow breath. "I don't believe in fate or destiny or any of that poetic stuff people say just to feel less alone. But today felt like something I wasn't supposed to walk away from." My throat tightened. "Titus." "No, let me finish," he insisted. "I've had crushes. I've had moments. I've had people who liked me because I was smart or funny or the guy who made speeches. But what I felt earlier, like when you told me I'm special, it hit different. I don't know what this could be. I just know I don't want to pretend it isn't happening." The world went still. The rooftop, the wind, the fading sun. Everything stilled around his words. I took a step closer without meaning to. He didn't step back. "I don't want to pretend either," I whispered. His breath shook. "I was hoping you'd say that." Silence settled between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like the kind of silence where something new was being built slowly, carefully. Then he laughed softly. "Okay, now you can see your picture." He handed the camera back. I expected something awkward or blurry. Instead, he had captured something raw, something vulnerable. Me standing in the wind, looking at him with a softness I didn't know was visible. Titus watched my reaction quietly. "You see it too, don't you?" I did. I really did. We stood side by side until the sun dipped behind the buildings and the sky deepened into twilight. Students disappeared from the lawns below. Lights flickered on across campus. Finally, Titus broke the quiet. "Ryder, I'm not asking for anything right now. I'm not trying to force whatever this is into a definition. But I do want one thing from you tonight." "What's that?" He turned toward me. "Time. Just a little more of it. With you." "You can have it," I said quietly. His relief was visible, like I had handed him something priceless. Good, he whispered, because I don't think I'm done talking to you yet. We left the rooftop together as night settled over the campus. The hallway lights flickered above us as we descended the stairwell. Titus fell into step with me naturally, our shoulders brushing every few seconds, neither of us moving away. Outside, the air smelled like damp grass and cool stone. The courtyard was dim except for the lamps lining the paths. Everything felt slower, gentler. So he said, shoving his hands into the pockets of his gown, "You live near campus. A few blocks away. You dorm for now, off campus soon." We reached the middle of the courtyard, pausing under one of the lamps. The light cast a soft ring around us, making the world feel small. "Ryder," he said quietly, "I'm glad you didn't leave after photos today. I kept thinking I'd miss my chance." I smiled faintly. "You make it sound like this is rare for you." "It is," he said. "I'm bold, not careless." "And this is bold." His voice dropped. "This is terrifying." "Me too," I admitted. He laughed quietly. "Guess that's fair." We walked again, slower this time. Neither of us seemed in a hurry to reach any destination. The campus stretched out quiet and comforting around us. When we reached the back gate, he stopped, turning to me with a softness that felt like a secret. "Hey, Ryder." "Yeah." "Can I ask something selfish?" "Sure." He hesitated. Then he stepped closer. Our faces were inches apart, breath mingling in the cool night air. "Can I hug you?" My chest tightened in a way I couldn't describe. I nodded. He slipped his arms around me, slow and careful, as if I might break. I wrapped mine around him too, and the moment he relaxed against me, everything inside me settled. His heartbeat pressed warm against my chest. His breath steadied against my neck, and for the first time all day, I felt completely still. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were soft and bright. "Thank you," he whispered. I didn't want him to step away. Not yet. Maybe not at all. He brushed a loose strand of hair from his face and cleared his throat. "Okay, I should get going before I start making decisions past midnight rationality." I smiled. "Call me if you do." He froze. A slow smile spread across his lips. "I'll do that," he murmured. He took a few steps backward toward the dorm path but kept his eyes on me until the last possible second. "Good night, Ryder." "Good night, Titus." He disappeared around the corner, leaving the courtyard quiet again. I stood there for a long moment, letting the night air wrap around me. My pulse was still racing in ways I couldn't calm. I lifted the camera, scrolling to the photos from the rooftop. Every shot of him was filled with something I didn't have words for yet. Every shot he took of me held something I wasn't ready to admit aloud. But the truth was there. Clear as the night sky. Undeniable. Tomorrow would bring whatever it would bring. But tonight I let myself feel everything.